It's the Craigie Rugby Podcast. Connacht have won their second game in a row in the sports ground. We're in the Coily Room, the famous Coily Room. I've got Linley MacKenzie and Dave Finn. Linley, that's a cracking result against a very good Glasgow team.
Yeah, I was a bit doubtful knowing about a victory here, in the sense that yes, Connacht had momentum, but Glasgow are an exceptionally good side. And, you know, not are they always they play a lovely brand of rugby, but they're also very physical up front, and that was bloody obvious right from the word go, that they did have that physicality. And there were times there where it looked like, particularly after Jarrad Butler was yellow carded, that they could get away from Connacht. But I think it was a cracking display from the lads, and I think it really, you have to take your hat off to the squad that is being built here. When you bring in, a few exceptional players from outside, like the Joe Joyces, etc., and you've also got these wonderful Connacht-based players, coming through, and you only have to look at Cathal Ford for one, who was just exceptional in the last two games. I think, it's a really good sign that against a Glasgow side that has a lot of pedigree, and sorry to put Nigel Carolyn, who doesn't often come back to Connacht and lose with Glasgow. But I think it was a well-deserved win from Connacht, and I think it augurs well. I'm particularly impressed with the squad.
Yeah, I agree. Dave, before I bring you in, here's me bringing you through the match, because everyone else had left today, so I was left to bring you through the match on my own in the Clan stand, which was bouncing. And then we hear from Pete Wilkins, Jarrad Butler and Franco Smith from the Glasgow side of things. So let's get through that bit before we talk to Dave.
Okay, better crowd than last week. I'm on my own this week. Danny's in Dublin, Packy's in London, and Rob is in Ballinrobe, which means William is commentating. 3 minutes before kick-off. Perfect day. Bit of a cloud up coming over, but there's a nice breeze. It's not too cold, and should be a crack in the match. Connacht have only beaten these guys once since the championship winning season, so it's going to be a huge ask looking for to win this game. Okay, just coming up to 20 minutes. Connacht have just scored a try. I think should have been disallowed, because I think Dermot Kilgallen pushed his opposite number in the back.
Score is 14, Glasgow 7.
And that's the score from Dave. It's been all Connacht, but they made one mistake and Glasgow scored. But they've handled that kick-off much better. Yeah, it's all looking good for Connacht. They're playing really well. Half-time in the sports ground, Glasgow lead 19 points to 14. 3 tries to 1. Glasgow are probably well worth their lead, because they're that little bit more effective when they get inside the Connacht 22. Jarrad Butler went off for 10 minutes for when they gave away a penalty try, but Connacht held out well, but then had possession, kicked it away with a scrum advantage, which the ref didn't give, which is why the crowd were booing, which I don't agree with. But it's all to play for the second half, but Connacht do have the win. 60 minutes, Connacht lead 27-19. An excellent try from Dylan Tierney-Martin, and a couple of a conversion and a penalty from Cathal Ford is now kicking because JJ is hurt. But Glasgow have the ball and they're on the attack. And that was an intercept by Dermot Kilgallen, which now puts Connacht 32 points to 19 with a conversion in front of the post to come. Wow, Connacht have just been amazing in this second half. They've absolutely been amazing. So we'll talk to you again at full time, because the atmosphere in here is electric. Okay, full time score, Connacht 34, Glasgow 26. That's a huge statement. Massive second half from Connacht. Some unbelievable performances right across the field. The defence was outstanding. Even though they did give away 4 tries, it was still outstanding. That's a huge statement in my eyes, and a really good start to the season for Connacht.
Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you
here's
enjoyed the match.
the post-match press conference.
Pete, that was probably in some ways a game of two halves, but Connacht, you must feel really excited by the performance and pleased with the result.
Yeah, I think it's a massive result. Glasgow are a quality team. We knew we'd have to play very well to beat them. I think they'll be there or thereabouts come the end of the season in terms of the top end of the competition, and loaded with internationals. So we knew we had to play better than we did last week, and we knew we had to have a really strong plan, I suppose, and execute that accurately. And I thought all around the guys did. Second quarter, I thought we were probably a little disappointing in terms of the penalties we conceded. I think there were a few moments of just trying to force the game a little bit, where the first quarter sort of showed we didn't have to. And we had some words about that at half-time, and credit to the lads, they took that on board. And, as I said, that third quarter, I thought we really made a statement in terms of doing the simple things really well, and, that was good enough and good enough to see out the game.
Yeah, you were 19-14 down at half-time, and, Glasgow had turned the screw in the second 20 minutes of the half. You'd had the yellow card. Was there a concern that the third quarter could get away from you? Was that discussed at half-time?
There wasn't a concern from me as much that it would get away from us. I think it was about learning the lessons from that second 20 minutes, as you mentioned. And, we went into the game knowing that Glasgow would have momentum at times. They'd have their periods of dominance. You get that against a good team. But also, we had a decent referee in Adam Jones, but one who's probably got a trend for yellow cards when teams concede back-to-back penalties and repeat infringements. So we came into the game knowing really well the sort of personality of the officiating that we might get. No issue with that, but it meant that if we concede one or two penalties, you've got to be bang on in terms of correcting your ways before it becomes a trend. And I think that second 20 minutes, I was disappointed with that. We had a penalty for not rolling away, which happens, but then a maul penalty followed by a line-out penalty. Followed by another maul penalty, and you're actually getting to that point where you're asking for trouble, and the yellow card was inevitable after that. But the 5-metre scrum on our own line, where we won a penalty in return, we're able to clear our lines. I just thought that was an outstanding response from the players. And the big thing we've talked about this season is how we turn the corner after a couple of back-to-back negatives in games, and I just thought that was really impressive for the character of the guys, but also a bit of control as well.
Yeah, the thing about that was, if you look at it from the 25th minute to the 40th minute, you didn't concede, but you were under a lot of pressure. And then they got a kind of a softish try right on half-time. The penalty try was the penalty try. Cathal Ford made a slight error on that. I don't know whether it was the sun on the kick-off and it bounced away. But those sort of situations in the past have freaked Connacht out a bit, especially the first 20 minutes of the next half. But this time you came out, you were on the front foot almost immediately. So did you say anything particular at half-time about having to do that?
Half-time, we talked really bluntly about the difference between those first, the first 20 minutes and the second 20 minutes. We talked about how well we'd done to generate fast ball in the first 20 minutes. We knew that would be crucial against the Glasgow defence that wants to get in the wrestle, wants to slow you down at the tackle off the ground, and really try and dominate you there physically. So we recognised in that first 20 that we controlled how we were attacking, and we did get fast ball, and we did get rewards for that. We also defended really well. We kicked chase really well. I thought we kicked smartly in terms of not kicking too early in the set to give Glasgow a good counter-attack, but still not playing too long with it. In that second 20, we just started trying to force things and went away from what we were doing really well. So what I said to the lads at half-time was, if we learn the lessons from the difference between the first 20 and the second 20, I think we'll come home with a wet sail. Now, it's always going to be tough against a good Glasgow team second half, but I do think we learnt the lessons. And so historically, that's not been a real strong point of ours. And we tend to get in a hole and stay there a little too long. So credit to the lads for responding today, but also it's something we're working on over the medium and long term as well, in terms of how they respond to those setbacks and recognise they're happening and then actually start to get about changing it. So I was really pleased with that aspect of it.
How are the walking wounded? There was a few. It was a hard game, it was a physical game. So how are they stacking up? Is there anybody you're particularly worried about, or is everybody just needs a bit of TLC and an ice bath?
Yeah, there's a few bumps and bruises. I think, we knew you're obviously rolling the dice a little bit going with a 6-2 bench, and you have to be a bit creative. And by the end we were, you had Byron Ralston playing at 12 and Caelan Blade on the wing and all sorts of things going on. So, in that sense, I said to the lads downstairs just now in the change room, I was so impressed, the guys that played 80, for them to hang in there, some of them by a thread, but not be rattled by the change of positions. I thought that was brilliant. The guys off the bench did a really good job of making an impact. Tom Farrell came off at half-time with a sore wrist, so that's something we'll look at. But outside of that, it's the normal bumps and bruises.
Pete, anything you were concerned about out there today?
I think that run of penalties in the second 20 minutes, I was really interested when it started happening. I was really interested to see whether we could turn the tide of momentum and how we would turn the tide of momentum. And in the end, it was a scrum penalty that did it. 5 metres from our line, which is a massive moment. But that period for me, we had a similar stage in the Ospreys game, first half, where I think we had 5 back-to-back negatives, penalties or turnovers, things that really gave the opposition a foothold in the game. So to see it come round again, having looked at it in review, it was, I wouldn't say it was concerning, but I was really interested to see if and how we worked our way out of it. But I was pleased that we did, and I think that largely was what gave us that confidence going into the second half that we could be better as well.
Jarrad, 2 wins out of 2. Probably a better class of opposition this week and a better performance by Connacht. What's the mood in the dressing room?
Everyone was really pleased, I think, in general. I think that game was kind of broken up into 4 different quarters as far as how the game went. I think we started really well, especially against the breeze. I think we knew that we were probably going to have to play a little bit more, and then got off to a good start just with scoreboard pressure. And then in that second quarter, I think going into that second half, they started to get a bit of momentum, and that's going to happen because they're a very good team and they're not afraid to kind of run it from anywhere. And that was probably one of the big things we knew going into that game is they're a good attacking team, and you have to be able to defend for long periods of time. And for that 20 minutes, they got the upper hand on us, and that was frustrating. And obviously to finish off with me getting carded there, that definitely doesn't help. But I think from that one, to not give away any points in that period was really important for the group as well, and it kind of got us rolling into that second half, I think.
Yeah, the second half was fascinating because 25th minute it was 14 each. Then the card came. Then you held on till right at the end, and then they got a bit of an old soft one when there was a kick went astray, and you're 19-14 down at half time, and you're not. What was the mood at half time? And I know half times in the dressing room there's a lot of chatting and you got to get focused, but was there a worry now that you'd let it slip a bit?
No, there wasn't a worry. I think there was a bit of frustration because we had started off so well in tough conditions there against the breeze, and we felt like we'd done enough to put ourselves in a good place, but we just weren't able to, we let them in that second quarter there and let them play on top of us and bring them all into the game, which was very good, and just a couple of back-to-back penalties and things like that. But we knew if we went out and were able to just get back to just doing what we were doing in that first quarter there and just building phases and not being afraid to run the ball as well, then we felt confident. We did. We felt really confident, and I think that's kind of what ended up happening really, which was positive.
Yeah, you got on the front foot. You got Dillon's try on the 45th minute, which was converted, and then Cathal Ford suddenly arrives on the scene, and he's booting over a 60-metre penalty, and that's the sort of thing you need to change the focus of the game, because suddenly they had to chase it, and once they were chasing the game, they didn't look anywhere near as confident. Yeah,
that 40 penalty was probably the moment in the game for me, I think, as far as where all of a sudden, like you said, they have to start chasing the game, and we were able to just. I think the biggest thing was just at the guys' defence. It was awesome. That Glasgow team, they're a very good attacking team, and they'll run out of their half. They're not afraid to run the ball from anywhere. And some of the defence from the guys, like Carl Ford included, and guys on the edge there, Ronnie, the boys in the middle, it was awesome. And even just at the end to defend, I don't know how many phases it was, 20-something phases maybe, without actually knowing. It was gutsy, man, and it was awesome.
Look, it's 2 out of 2 at the start. There was pressure on. There was an expectation from last season. You got to a semi-final. You have 3 home games. You've won the first 2. You have Ulster coming next week. You can kick on from that again now. That makes a big difference. When it sounds simple. Win a game, but momentum is huge in this sport.
Yeah, I think you look at the start of our season last year, we made it really hard on ourselves, and we kind of spent the rest of that middle period of the season just trying to get back to equilibrium again and put ourselves into a position. So we knew it was going to be really important that we started well. And to have 3 home games, that's pretty much best case scenario, and you have to take those opportunities. So to be able to get 2 from 2 was huge and a big part of what we were aiming to do in this first block. And now we've got another massive chest test coming up, so I have to get back on the horse again. But you're right. It's been a great first 2 weeks, and it's pretty exciting.
Talking about defence, which won the game today. Scott Fardy's come in. what's he brought? What's the difference you're seeing from him in the organisation, or just the mental side of defence, which is that a big part of it? Just, you have to concentrate to defend properly. You've got to make the right decisions as well.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mindset thing as well. You know, you can have all the game planned in the world, but when it comes down to like defence, at the end of the day, it comes down to putting your head in uncomfortable positions sometimes, especially against that Glasgow team. They're big bodies. They are big bodies, but you kind of watch that game back and you wouldn't have realised with the way guys were flying into it, and that was the difference, I think. Like Fards, Cully, John Muldoon, all these guys. They really drive a high standard around that physicality and that contact area there, and having those voices on the pitch always barking at you. I think it's making a really big difference, and just having all those guys around on that pitch where you're training, I think it helps as well, because you've got guys just looking at all the different areas, and yeah, you're right. I think that was the winning of the game there.
Is there a lot more communication now in Connacht, or have Connacht become a louder team, that you're talking to each other more? There was always a slight concern a couple of seasons ago that Connacht were very silent. You didn't hear, but now you hear, especially in the referee's mic, there's a buzz of noise coming. Is that something you're working on all the time, to keep talking to players and sort of pushing yourselves?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe we haven't spoken about it consciously, but I know, when someone puts on a really good shot, it's very infectious, and it kind of motivates everyone around you. And now we've got a whole bunch of guys that, like, you see, like a Joe Joyce flying out of the line and puts a really good hit on, and then like Oisin Dowling comes on and puts a hit on, and you got 15 guys on the field that are willing to kind of throw their bodies around, and it is an infectious thing, and you saw that there when we were able to defend at the end there, and then important periods throughout the game as well. So yeah, it's probably not something that you think about or you talk about, but you're right that it definitely it just permeates through the team when you get a few guys like that standing up, and it becomes really fun. It becomes enjoyable.
Jarrad, since you've been here, how much do you see Connacht having improved?
I think looking at it prospectively, and then where we are now, definitely the biggest thing that I see is just like the depth of the squad is really strong at the moment, and then you can see we had some issues, or not issues, but we had to put Blady on the wing and move shuffle guys around. 40 was kind of like a 10, took the kicking duties and things like that. And I think the strongest thing is the depth at the moment, and that's, I feel like, what you need to be truly competitive. I think over the years we've had a really good 15 or 22 guys, but to have a really strong 30, 40 blokes is I think it's hard to kind of get that. You kind of got to be a little bit lucky, but we've got that at the moment, and I think that's probably the most exciting thing about this year. We've got genuine depth and guys that are really knocking at the door. Like, there's a whole bunch of guys that haven't really got an opportunity yet, but they've been training really well, and they'll get a shot soon, and I think they'll be brilliant.
Franco, that was a tough day at the office for you in the end, and you didn't get anything out of it. So how are you? How's the mood in the dressing room?
No, I think we get a bonus point for the 4 tries that we scored, so we've got enough of it. And first of all, second thing is we showed that our fitness levels are up to the standard what's needed. We showed a bit of fight and character towards the end. Tough day from our side. I would think there's a lot of things we can do better, but compliments must go to the way Connacht prepared for this game, and they used their knowledge of how we're going to play very well, and obviously defended really well. 2 intercepts, important intercepts in our strategy, one that led to a try. So yes, I think we were off it, but early in the season that sometimes happens, so we're going to look for the positives.
Yeah, it is very early in the season, and at the end of the season it's really where you want to be, but how difficult is it to bring back players that have been at the World Cup? Just in terms of bringing them back into a completely different system, and how they've got to deal with a certain disappointment of maybe how it went at the World Cup for them. Is that a big challenge?
Yeah, definitely. I think all the coaches that got players coming back, we have a big chunk of them. There's 17 of them that was involved. In the end, there was it's a lot of them coming in 2 groups. But yes, we're not making an issue about that. It's definitely not an excuse. I think the players, would have taken a lesson from it that the intensity and the density of the URC is important for them to adapt to. It's different execution than in a test match, and so they just got to sink or swim. And so we're not going to tonight use that as an excuse, but it is a challenge. Obviously, it's a big challenge. We have a specific plan, therefore. We've seen the first 3 or 4 games as part of pre-season, and we'll take the learnings into the next one.
Is there a pressure having done so well last season, top 4? Is that where you sort of want to be? You're in that zone, or is it too early to start thinking about that?
Yeah, we want to win every game. That's what we're made of, and I think everybody in the competition has got that vision. So. No, look, today, Connacht played in the semi-finals this year. They were exceptional against Ulster away from home last year and getting into that semi-final. We played against a class outfit, very good group that's had a lot of continuity. They might not have been disrupted with the guys coming back from the World Cup yet. They have very few guys coming back, so the continuity that they have from the bigger squad is immense. So I'm not going to look for little flaws in our environment now, not at all. In fact, I think a loss in the beginning of the season. We last year lost 4 of the first 8 games, so and nobody remembers that. So no, we'll take it 1 week at a time.
There's one question. What surprised you most about Connacht tonight?
I think the resilience. We've had more in scrum dominance, but the very next one they were back at it. And they just stuck to their process. They had a specific plan on how to interrupt our attack ability. We saw when we were a little bit accurate in the last 10-15 minutes what we can do, and again I think that proves how well they worked in the first 60-70 minutes on preventing us to get out of them.
Okay, Dave. Yeah, that's. The answer I wanted from Franco Smith was the one I thought I was hoping going to get, was the resilience that Connacht showed today. A lot of players went down injured at various different times. You ended up with Blady on the wing, and you had all sorts of changes going on. 40 packing down in the in the scrum. It shows Connacht have built the resilience now.
Yeah, but it's also resilience is. We kind of don't really want to be relying on resilience. Resilience means that something's gone wrong. So
no, I disagree. Resilience is showing that you can take stuff that's going wrong and manage it and still get through it.
But I mean, things aren't going out the way you planned them. I think to a certain degree, when you're being resilient, something that you had planned for hadn't planned for has happened. In this case, it was, first of all, you're going to get a yellow card. That can happen. I wasn't going to ask Jarrad about whether or not he thought the guy had broken off, but okay, fair enough, referee gives you a yellow card. Once it goes PT, someone's going to the bin. So you think, oh God, it's 10 minutes. And we know, we've seen that in the World Cup, we've seen that in the URC, that when you go down to 10 minutes, it can be, when you lose a player, it can be hugely counterproductive. But we saw it out. Ironically enough, we go back to 15 men and we make another mistake and they stroll in for a try. But at that time as well, I thought JJ Hanlon was done because I thought he'd done his knee. I thought he'd done his knee. He was on the ground. It was a fair contest. There was no issues about whether it was unfair play or not. But that makes it even more because I mean, if you can get angry if it's foul play, but when it's just something that happens, that's tough. But he showed individual resilience because he doesn't come up. Now you then have to wonder about the logic of 6-2, but that's for another day. But then Colin Ford steps in at 8, wins the scrum penalty, steps in at 10, kicks the 60-metre penalty. And it just was. You didn't feel there was a breakdown. You didn't feel things that was being held together by God's glue. It was still coherent. It was still constructive.
That's the resilience I'm talking about.
Yeah, there was no. At no point did you feel this is all very much on the verge of collapse. The reason they conceded the try at the end was they were out on their feet. That defensive performance in the second half was huge. If you saw Carl when he tried to make the break up the wing, I've never seen. He ran like it was the 90th minute and he was a prop.
Yeah. He was looking for a winger to help him out there. He really was.
Because they had put in a huge physical effort. And Linley was absolutely right. That is not a soft team. That's not the B. We've lost to thirds, effectively Glasgow thirds. That was as close to A as they could get, given the restrictions on their World Cup players. That was a hugely physical pack. They came and they hit hard, and we stood up to it. And yeah, resilience is one word, but also just very well coached at this moment in time. Is it the finished article? No. We've conceded 52 points and some slightly soft tries over the course of the last 2 weeks. So still a lot to work on, but it's definitely much better. And I think, apart from the fact that we didn't get the bonus try, pretty good, pretty much as you'd want out of those first 2 games. There's still an awful lot to improve on.
There is, Linley, but you can see now that there's, you know, the quality of the coaching starting to come through, because the accuracy that Connacht are showing, and for me, we're giving away so few penalties at ruck time compared to when we used to.
Well, I think with confidence and good coaching, that the accuracy comes. When you're playing, it's a bit like, you know, if you go back to, I'm just looking here at the Guinness Pro 12 trophy here
yes.
here beside me, and if you look back to that team then and their performances, they were so confident.
Yeah, especially the second half of the season.
In what they were doing. Things seemed to just click with them. And now I know it was slightly different because they were playing slightly more prescriptive rugby.
Yep.
But at the same time, they had their momentum, that they had confidence in what they were doing and how they were doing it. And, you know, and I think that is what is happening with the team here at the moment. You know, they completely look like they're actually as well enjoying it, you know. So there is that a greater confidence. I think, to be fair, the long pre-season they have had is really, really played into their hands. It has done well, because there was quite a few changes and there are quite a few young players. Now, we're talking quite a few young players in this team now, but they're really developing extremely well. And I think that there is that confidence, like passes are sticking most of the time. You know, there's an odd one or two, that's to be expected. You know, kicks are usually being a lot more accurate. There's a lot more accuracy, I think, in everything they're doing.
Yeah.
And with that accuracy, you know, that breeds that confidence. And I think it is a team that is definitely growing and, you know, and has got huge potential.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. For me, this was an early season defining game, and that, you know, Glasgow were coming fully loaded, and where Connacht, the talk that they were doing, saying they were going to compete, and they were a semi-final team last year and they want to go one step further. They put a lot of belief behind that, with that performance as well as victory today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if confidence breeds confidence. You have a performance like last week where you know that you only played for 40 minutes and you came out with it was a really good 40 minutes, and you come out with a 5-point win. Yep. You then go in against a team that is definitely much more close to full strength than the Ospreys were last week, and you then put that performance in. Now you're coming up against an Ulster team, and we don't know how Ulster are going to be next week. They're definitely going to be slightly more affected by than Glasgow were, with players being missing, but they got a big win last weekend. They squeaked home. You're not overly happy about the last play, but they got the 5 points and they got the win. They have a game tomorrow. We'll see how they go tomorrow. They could be coming in on 10 points, so they're going to be in a good mood. So it's going to be two teams.
And they were the last team to beat Connacht in the sports ground.
Yes, but remember the last time we played them, we bet them up there, so it's 50-50. So both teams have a point to prove to each other, and both teams are coming in with confidence. But you would hope that, given what happened today, in terms of where last week it was very much with the ball, today was very much without the ball. Now you're hoping next week it's both, and that will be enough to beat a confident Ulster side.
Okay, we're going to keep it short today. I have one thing, and this is not at you, Dave, personally, but the sound levels were way too high today. And last week were probably too low, but I wasn't complaining. I thought it was brilliant last week that they were too low, but this week they were way too high. There has to be somewhere in between we can find, because my view is that I'm there to watch a match and I want the crowd to get involved. And when the sound levels are down and the crowd started singing the Fields of Athenry, there you go, and that's a crowd generating their own. They don't need the help of music and whatever that you're hearing in the World Cup that's driving me bananas. Let the crowd bring their own atmosphere.
Well, I would say one thing: we don't play music during the game, because that's just stupid.
Yeah.
We were taking a note last week. There was issue with there is definitely an issue, and it's been going on. I have no say over the sound. I am very much a figurehead. We'll take it on board. We'll make sure we will try.
There has to be a medium.
Yeah, there is a medium, and I mean the problem there is that when I checked it this morning, I was doing it in an empty grandstand and it didn't seem that loud. But then again, you don't. Again, it's different. That's to be taken on board. Like I said, we'll say to the guys, just drop it down 10%, because that's what we did last week.
Yeah.
There is an issue with the speakers, but they're
Yes.
prehistoric speakers. Though.
Yes, and I think that's as big a problem as,
I
there is out there.
I would warn people next week. The light show is back next week, folks, because it's an evening
it's
game.
at night, yes. Oh, looking forward to a bouncing stand. Looking forward to Joe Joyce doing something again in the first 5 minutes.
I'm going to withdraw one thing I said. I never imagined Joe Joyce running in from 50 metres. He came damn close today.
He certainly did. That intercept was amazing. Last week he nearly split a fella in two with a tackle. This week he intercepts very early in the game. You think, that guy's got something about him. All right, that's it, folks. We'll talk to you during the week.
Loose, cut it loose. Break out or nothing changes. Sad and confused. Don't wait until